And welcome to the podcast.
The podcast.
I'm Ricky Sands.
Daniel Heidbrink.
Andy Rivera.
The podcast where we talk about podcasting things.
Music.
Podcasting music.
Podcasting church things.
Movies.
Lots of stuff.
And books.
And other things.
Tune in as often as we can remember to record these things.
The podcast.
Podcast
With
Ricky Sands.
Daniel Heidbrink.
Andy Rivera. Sorry.
Dude, is that the new Pokemon Go?
No. I was not Pokemon going before.
We have an addiction.
Seriously, you can catch a Squirtle in my bathroom. I'm just going to let you know right now.
I
Is
call
that
my-
the one you caught?
No, it's his start. He couldn't catch another Squirtle. So
Oh,
he
you
had to
can't?
start with one.
Well, so maybe it's a Ratatouille.
Ratatouille.
You can catch a Ratatouille in my
I think
bathroom.
that's what it's called.
Yeah. In case any of you guys don't know, Ricky's new to this whole Pokemon thing. He never played as a kid.
My
so
brother would be disappointed.
Yeah.
Like, super disappointed.
all of America's would be disappointed.
True.
So, and
True.
mostly Asia.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the podcast. The podcast. You are sitting here with the podcast 3, Mr. Daniel Heidbrink, Andy Rivera, and I am Ricky Sands. And speaking of America, I've been waiting to say this for such a long time.
He has. He's not lying.
But happy belated birthday, America. So it's been a few weeks, or a couple weeks since
Thank you, Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum, for all that you've done for us.
Yes,
Yeah.
seriously.
Without you, we wouldn't have an Earth.
That's actually...
It's very true.
Do we need to give a moment of silence?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
Let's give a Jeff Goldblum minute. All right, guys.
All right,
awesome.
that was
That
good.
was good.
That was really good.
Good stuff. So, it's been a couple of weeks since we've been able to record an episode here. Andy and I were out of town last week, so the last episode that you guys heard was the double dip,
The double dip.
the double
Double
dip
dip.
episode where we talked about just music and all the things the Lord has done with music in our lives. And so today, it's kind of a continuation of that, what we're going to focus on. But I think before we really get started, we're going to kind of talk about worship in general, not worship just as music, but worship as a lifestyle, and kind of what that looks like in the lives of 3 individuals who all have different roles, different responsibilities, and those types of things. But kind of wanted to just hit on the mission trip that Andy and I went on and talk about our experience there, what the Lord did. There was amazing. It was incredible. I think that the first night there we thought we bit off more than we could chew, and of course, God proved us wrong again. And so,
So, in case some of you don't know, we went out to Purdy, Missouri, small rural place in smack dab in Missouri, and called Camp Barnabas. It's in a small sentence. How would you describe it?
I mean, it's a camp basically for people with everything from developmental disability to physical disability, some with both, to go and just have a great time. And so we went on, specifically the week was called Challenge Week, which is, it's set up where about 85 to 90% of the campers that came were confined to a wheelchair for the most part. And so we went on that week in particular because there's a camper from the church, from the Edge, that goes there every week. And so we went down there and we were able to serve her along with the other campers.
You want to do a shout out?
Shout out.
Shout out to Maddie Morgan.
Shout out.
Shout out.
Shout out.
What's up?
And it was just awesome to go down there and hang out with Maddie and just kind of see what it is that she's gotten to do all these years since the Morgans discovered Camp Barnabas.
It's been it's crazy, kind of looking looking back at it, the first night we were all there, I thought we were in a place where everybody drank the Kool-Aid and like it was super happy. Like,
Yeah.
me being brown, I've never seen so many white people in my entire life smile so big, and it's just like I was like, whoa, what is this place? This is like
It's a lot of
Neverland.
white smiles.
Yeah, this is like Neverland Ranch. It's really weird.
Right.
And so, but like hearing them talk about training and what we're getting ready to do, you're scared. Like I was completely scared, terrified, and I was just like, I remember the night before we actually met our campers, I was just like praying hardcore. Lord, get me through this, and as if like it was something crazy, like.
Yeah.
But the day showed up whenever the campers arrived, and oh my gosh, everything disappeared. All
Yeah.
anxiety, all worry, all terror just disappeared because they're just human beings. I think it's crazy.
Yeah.
Sure, they might be delayed in some sort of fashion, but they are very much there, just like we are. And I think we've come back with some of the most amazing stories and some of the funniest stories. I've never seen so much poop in my entire life.
Yeah. So there's a lot to kind of tell about Camp Barnabas. Hitting on the whole happiness thing, Camp Barnabas literally has like a slogan as being known as the happiest place on earth. And they weren't kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like we pulled in and it was like a party. There were people
Yeah.
dancing around the car and like flailing their arms around, and it was just like you couldn't help. But like
Yeah.
as soon as you pulled onto campus, it was like you had a smile on your face. And it was, I mean, literally, kind of hitting on what Andy was talking about, and just being scared and those things. Like, I think that once we got to camp, we didn't really know what to expect fully. But within the first few hours, like you're learning, like you're taking care of people, like you are their hands and feet. And so, we're getting ready to start training, and we're learning about assisted daily living stuff. And they're like, oh yeah, you're going to help them shower, you're going to help them go to the bathroom, you're changing their socks and underwear, like, and like every camper is different. Just to hit on kind of like I think there are several lessons that God taught me specifically going to camp. And I actually, like Andy, that first night, I was literally in tears, like in my bunk, praying to God to get me through the week, and essentially asking Him to take this cup from me because I didn't think that I could handle it.
Ricky's a big baby. I don't know if you guys knew that.
Yeah, says the guy who also cried all week.
Yeah.
And so I think the biggest thing, though, I wrote in my journal the very first night, within the first couple of hours of being there, I laid awake all night in bed, just thinking about this and praying to God for His help. And coming out of it, I feel very just ignorant. I think I wrote in my journal that if this is where God sovereignly placed me, I was here to take care of the least of these. And I wrote that in my journal, and by Friday I went back and I read through my first prayer, essentially, that I wrote to God, and I realized how sinful and just shameful of a mindset I had going into this, thinking that the people that we were there to serve were any different than you and I. And just being completely transparent, like, disability, it scares me. It makes me nervous. It doesn't anymore. But going into it, it was just this ignorance to the world of disability and these false assumptions that I had made about people with disability. And so that's like the overall biggest lesson, on top of like, your wow, dude.
That's a big fail. Hey, why don't you go ahead and take that call?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and take that
Yeah,
call?
I'll go ahead and
Call
take
you.
that. Here, hold on. I'm going to step out of the room real quick.
Uh-huh.
Papa Bear, Papa Rivera.
Yeah, go ahead and shut that door behind you, too.
Yeah, cool. Wow. We might have to look for a third.
Yeah, so we're
taking applications for brown guys. If you guys are interested in being on the podcast with the podcast 3,
Right. Andy just got fired.
There's
Literally
not
was
much
fired.
qualification. We just need your skin to be darker than ours.
And it's
So-
super strict here, as you can tell. So
Yeah.
one little mistake and you're gone.
Right.
You're out of here.
So
Well, I just I wanted to throw one thing into this because I know I've heard you talking about this since you guys got back, and I just want to be clear, and I know you don't mean it this way, but so those that do, and I don't know what the correct political term is, if it is just disability or if there's a different term now, but people that have that deal with disabilities do have special challenges, specific challenges that we don't have, right?
Sure.
So it's definitely not when we're saying that there's no difference, we're not they do have challenges that we don't have to face, right?
Yeah.
Now we're all unique, and I get that, but so I just wanted to throw that out there because I feel like that there is I think the distinction, what I'm hearing when you're saying that, at least if I'm understanding right, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's that when you're looking at you're looking at it more from a perspective of we're all the same, in God's eyes, we're all the same, on a salvation level and on a
Sure.
and on a human level. I mean, right? In terms of being respected.
Yeah, when I say that, honestly, going into this, I can't really explain what I thought going into this, but it was different, as in they're the same, they just have just different setbacks,
Right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I even sing they and them and their,
Sure.
and all of that stuff, but being completely transparent, I think a part of me, and this is so sinful, and I'm ashamed of this mindset, but I just thought I was going in to take care of literally just the lowly,
Right.
And it was not the case at all.
Which
Yeah.
by default puts you up at a higher
Right.
pedestal, right?
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
that's-
And I think that not purposefully, it wasn't intentional, but I think that there was these people need me.
Yeah.
Is kind of what I was thinking,
Yeah.
and really, they need some assistance.
As if we have something great to offer.
Right. Exactly. And it wasn't that. I mean, that wasn't the case at all. I mean, it's just completely humbled, a completely humbling experience.
Right.
And so these aren't the least of these. These are just God's children, and they're
Yeah.
beautiful, just like you and I are. And and so it's looking at it from God's perspective, or the best way that I can. It was literally, and so what Andy was saying, going into this, I met my camper. His name is Adam. I love that he's a St. Louis.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
St.
Go
Louis
ahead, go
native.
ahead.
St. Louis native. Avid Kansas City Royals fan.
Yep, loves them.
So all week, Pastor Scott, there you go, buddy.
Shout out.
That's
Shout
a
out.
burn. Shout out. And so, you go into this, you're learning about all of the things that you're going to be doing, assisted daily living wise, and then we thought it was cool that it was a party when we arrived, but when the campers arrived, it was the craziest experience ever. They had music going. They had tons of people. They're shouting. They're jumping. It's literally roll out the red carpet. Here's the campers. These are the stars of our week. And it was amazing. And the whole time I really couldn't get into it because each camper, I'm I don't know what he looks like. I don't know what he looks like. Is that him? Is that him?
Yeah.
And I'm waiting for them to call, Adam from B5 the
Right.
whole time. And it was just and when he finally arrived, funniest cat in the whole world. As soon as he rolled out, big personality. And so, we went back to the cabin. I helped him get his stuff set out. We unpacked, made his bed, and just sat down and just immediately just hit it off and started talking. And it was in that moment, all anxiety, all fear dissipated. It was God goes, Ricky, here is my son. Take care of him for me.
Yeah.
And it was it's just so humbling. And I'm crying, sitting there going, what is wrong with you? How did you allow yourself to think so much more highly of yourself?
Yeah.
Dude, I just remember
So-
getting there when I got my camper. My camper's name was Joey, and he comes in and he's all excited, I'm just dang, this happiness is real. We go back to the cabin and he goes, "Hey, my name's Joey, the loaf baker."
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And I already knew what he was getting at. See, Joey is renowned at the camp as being the loaf baker, only solely because he bakes loaves. And by loaves, I mean poop. And by bakery, I mean
Yeah,
his
so
stomach.
we should probably put a warning on this when we post this on iTunes.
There is a lot of Andy and poop chatter.
We're probably going to talk a lot about poop, at least during the first section of this podcast.
So also, if you're eating, I would
Knock it off.
I'd eat more, so...
Yeah.
But it's crazy just to see the experience from beginning to end. I just remember seeing Max Morgan, shout out.
Shout out.
We were getting our stuff, and we're going to. This is the first day. We're going to our cabins, and he goes, "Wait, guys, are we not gonna be in the same cabin?"
Yeah.
And then we're like, I'm just like, I don't think so, Max. And he goes, "Guys, wait, no, guys."
Yeah. I mean, even for us, like, I would say that we're pretty outgoing.
Yeah.
Naturally, like, we get along with people. We're able to talk to people,
Right.
make friends, those types of things. But I still think that there was a huge part of me
Yeah, it
that,
still
like, my
stresses you.
social anxiety was just,
Yeah.
like, off the charts.
I was the only brown guy there, I think.
No, there was another brown guy there.
No, he was Asian.
He was, but he was still dark. He wasn't yellow.
He was a tan Asian.
That's true. Is this
Yeah.
racist? I think
Probably.
I think it's racist if we didn't mention it.
Truth.
Yeah. So
Yes. Okay.
Hashtag truth.
Yeah, I'm probably. I've been talking to a few people. I'm still kind of processing all of this
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
You know, it's like I think that it had a life-changing impact on Andy and myself. I know that for Max, like him getting to go down there and hang out and see like what his sister gets to do every year, had a profound impact on him. All of the youth that went with us. It just had a huge impact on them. I think that God definitely used this time at Barnabas to draw us near to Him, humble us. I learned lessons in patience, humility, you know, and really, you know, Max. I know we keep giving him a shout out, but like he said something that's really stuck with me down at Inspiration Point where the cross was, and it was that he had never felt closer to God in his whole life.
Awesome.
And that was, and I would agree with that. And Barnabas truly is the happiest place on earth.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I can't wait to go back next year. I'm going to write a blog about it, I think. And Andy and I are going to be working on
The blog.
The blog.
The
And I'll share that.
Ricky blogs. He blogs.
He's a blogger.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm Squilliam.
I blog and I drink almond milk. If you
Almond
guys are wondering.
So, yeah. Well, go ahead and let everyone know what you're drinking because I know we skipped that.
Yes, today we're as in me. I am drinking almond milk. I'm not sure what brand because we shop at Aldi's now.
Aldi's.
And so
Aldi's.
it's Aldi's brand almond milk. I just want to say it's delicious, and what Andy's drinking is disgusting.
I had a leftover of Gatorade Frost,
Which was
Arctic
mine yesterday.
Blitz, which was Ricky's, and he said this tastes like medicine. Well, I differ, but
He's trying to sound fancy.
actually, Ricky, it tastes pretty all right.
And Daniel looks like he is drinking.
I am drinking, Ricky. I'm drinking a pure aqua spring water.
It's a great value.
It's BPA free. It says water is an essential part of life. Replenish and hydrate your body. Wow. Yeah, zero calories.
Wow,
honestly.
Daniel's cheap. If you didn't know this,
Yeah.
So we don't have
Yes.
any sponsors. So if any of
almond
you
milk,
three,
just all
Pure
almond
aqua, Gatorade,
but mostly almond milk sponsor us.
Can water
all
sponsor
these.
us? H2O, is that a thing?
What?
I just, for whatever reason, I went through the scene of the water boy when he was like, "Hey, Bobby, water sucks. Gatorade is better." Water sucks. It really sucks. Anyways, so
Okay, so I wanted to kind of make this really smooth transition. So, my question for you guys is, since we're going to kind of be talking about worship today, how did Camp Barnabas, how did that like affect how you view worship?
Oh man.
You want me to go?
Yeah, sure.
So, worship, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding of what worship is. I think worship is attributed to a style of music, while there is a style of music that is labeled as or categorized as worship, but worship is a lifestyle, and it's something that really, like, God, through the process of progressive sanctification, is continuously molding my heart, reshaping me into Christ-likeness. And so, in order for me to, I don't want to say attain or achieve that or be successful in that, because every day, like, I fall short. But for me, like, it's an intentional lifestyle, and that everything that I do the best that I can to look at through the lens of a sovereign God, through the lens of, Jesus glasses, if you will, and so, going down there, I was almost forced into submissiveness, which is an act of worship, and that, like, you literally rely upon God in everything. It's like once at Barnabas, like once all the anxiety went away, because it's challenge week, it's so physically taxing that you're literally like going, God, please give me the strength to get down on my knees one more time and put his braces on and tie his shoes. And I've got, bruises on my knees still. My back is sore from walking up and down hills. I literally walked through a pair of shoes, walked the sole off of my right shoe, and had to duct tape it back on.
Ricky wore flats.
I kind of did, yeah. Not like girl flats, but they were not good shoes. And so, but, it's like I said, like, God has just been constantly reworking that. So it's like, it's everything. If worship can be this right here, like, we kind of went through a prayer before we went into this. This is an act of worship. Glorify God in all that you do. 1 Corinthians 10:31, I think, or 10:13.
Look in your Bibles.
Look in your Bibles. There's a verse in there. It's in there. There's a Bible verse for that.
It's there.
Seth Mason. he was famous for that. But there really is a Bible verse for that. And so it's like, for me, like, that's worship. Whether you eat or drink, whatever you do all to the glory of God. And so that's everything from, praise God for almond milk. Recognizing that all is gift, it's all from Him. And so that's in times of challenge, which was challenge week at Barnabas, and that's through the good times as well. And I think that through almost being forced into submissiveness and, like, reliability upon God, it made me stronger in that, and it made me appreciate coming back home and realizing all the gifts that God has given me, and give thanks, and then persevere when it's tough. You guys leaving? All right. Love you, babe. Bye, Finney.
Autumn's leaving.
Bye, Autumn.
The room, the building.
Bye, Finn.
See you guys.
Finn.
Shout out.
Shout out.
Yeah, have fun.
So really quick, what I'm hearing is, like, part of this trip, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but part of this trip showed you that worship is servanthood.
Yes.
I mean, that's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
But the like, and also in a sense, like, whether through joy or through suffering, we worship.
Yeah.
Right. We
sure.
choose to do that. And that verse, every good gift that's given or whatever comes from the Father of lights. Right.
Yeah.
That recognizing that this trip really helped kind of bring that out to you.
Yeah. For sure.
Definitely. I know, just to touch on it real quick, I know coming back into this, like, it was crazy to know that you went there and you're serving just to, it's not that you're serving to gain anything, it's just the fact of the matter is there are needs that need to be met, and you are the servant. You are there doing it because, quite frankly, no one else can. So you're doing it, and when you come back home, and for me, like, I know, I talked with Ricky every now and then, I literally wake up in the middle of the night ready to just, like, move
Yeah.
a camper that's not even at my house.
Yeah.
I remember pushing my wife over and just going, "I got you, buddy," and like I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy," because it's still happening.
You brought it home,
I brought it home and everything. So for me, like what worship means to me, like coming back in this is just that, you know what, I'm getting ready to have a kid, you know, I still have a marriage that God has blessed me with, and so like what that looks like coming back is just that, you know what, like things, whether they suck or they don't suck, they just got to be done. Like especially coming from a husband standpoint, and laboring. It is just good to be doing them, not for any credit or anything like that. As a husband, we just have to take care of our wives. We have to love our wives like Christ loved the church. And so what that looks like is just doing the things we need to do. And that really spoke to my heart and really humbled me. Instead of just like really feeling whether I'm worn out or tired from what happened that day, it's just, you know what, at the end of the day, things still need to get done. I remember we came home from camp, and our two dogs, who are beasts of dogs, they tore up some trim in our house and dug through some drywall. And I just looked at it, and I'm sure if this was a week before, I would have like grabbed the shotgun and then like ate them like later on that night.
Yeah.
But straight up looked at it, I was like, all right, I'm not gonna gripe about it. I just gotta fix it. Like that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
And went ahead and did all that stuff. And it's just like these things, we are meant to do what
Right.
God has called us to do. Be servants, put others before ourselves, and do things just because we have to do them.
Well, and it sounds like look at the ministry and the life
Mhm.
of Jesus, and look at I've been reading through the Gospels recently, and so as you're saying this, like I keep these images, or you know what I form as images from reading the Gospels, keep coming into my head of like Jesus walking along, and then all the disciples are very realistically, but they're just like, we're hungry, we're tired,
Yeah.
and Jesus sees another need, and instead of satisfying a personal need or comfort, he just continues. He's like you're saying, like he sees things that need to get done and he does them, but never once does Jesus do them without a sense of worship
Yeah.
and praise to the Father, right? And so kind of this idea of being able to set aside, like really, I mean, it's the gospel, but it's setting aside yourself and laying your life down
Yeah.
for others,
Yeah,
and following the commandments that Jesus has given us. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah. I'm reading through, I just started a new Bible plan. It's like, read the Bible in a year. It's like all of them are different. All of them, like, you're reading this book while you're reading this book.
Yeah, Joel's
and
teen read through.
No.
like-
just the Bible. But
no, you guys know.
no, not at all. But I'm reading through Genesis and Job together.
Yeah.
And for me, that's like really interesting. I started this yesterday. I read through the first two chapters of Genesis, read through the first two chapters of Job. Both books I've read through numerous times, but it's interesting to read them together, because it's almost like as if, Adam, the first son of God, so quickly strays and succumbs to like a sinful lifestyle.
Yep.
And then you get to Job, and Job like perseveres through like the whole time.
All this crazy stuff. Yeah.
Both like sons of God, both almost in a way like similar stories, in that like Job had an abundant life. He had so many gifts from God, and God had blessed him. Not necessarily because of his faithfulness, but Job was a faithful guy, and God knew that through temptation and through suffering, Job would continue to worship God through that, right?
Yeah.
And his sovereignty, he knew that. And so it's just interesting reading the two stories, and then you get to the Gospels, and then you get to Jesus, the Son of God, who also persevered through all the way through in that. And for me, like, that is just like the perfect depiction of worship as a lifestyle. Is that like life is hard, but God is still good through all of that.
Yeah.
And I think that coming back from Barnabas, and then just coming back, like Andy's saying, being a husband, being a dad, being a coworker, a youth pastor, and a sound, whatever it is, and just seeing that in all of that, you can always see God's goodness even when things are hard. And worship for me is just perseverance, and I admire guys like Job, but I also can empathize with guys like Adam and go, I know what it's like to succumb to the fall, because I do it daily.
Right.
I'm sinful, but it's like,
well, and with that, so then there's this idea, so like kind of in preparing to talk about worship, there's a book. So I was just going to reference a couple books here that are on worship, but one of them is called Unceasing Worship, and it's by Harold Best. And I've only read like the first chapter, a couple chapters of this book, but he really kind of puts forth this idea that the Father, like God, he continually gives. He continually like pours out of him like life and goodness, and then us as those that receive, we continually take, but we also continually like worship. We're continual worshipers.
Yeah.
And so with that, though, with the fall of man comes the problem that we then now continually worship something. Yeah. And if God isn't in place of that object of worship, then it's going to be something else.
Yeah.
And then you now have idolatry.
Yeah. Pokemon Go, right?
Pokemon Go.
Right,
so like
right.
Andy has been worshiping.
put your phone away. No.
I've been almost dying on the road catching Rattatas, Weedle, saying I almost caught a Kadabra today, but that's I don't like to talk about it because he ran away. So.
Oh my gosh. No, I mean it's true. It's true. You don't just stay off your phone. Stay off Pokemon Go when you're driving.
Yes.
Or unless it's really important.
Right.
No.
Unless it's like a Mew or like something.
or
I almost need to put a rating on this podcast right here.
So I saw-
swaying kids to text and drive.
Yeah, don't
Pokemon and
don't.
drive.
Yeah,
We
don't
are not.
Pokemon Go and drive, but unless it's necessary. So I saw this meme last night. Whatever. I just still can't believe how much this has blown up, like super quick. Just
Pokemon
like,
Go?
Pokemon
Yeah,
Go.
yeah.
Just to touch on it real quick. I saw a meme, and all it said was, has Pokemon Go, walks into Area 51, and then the security guard says, "What are you doing? You can't be here." We're like, "Whatever, man. I'm trying to capture Mewtwo," or something like that. So it's just like, I'm going to die at the risk of doing it. But, I mean, hey, if they die and they catch a Mewtwo, all power to them.
If you want to talk, go ahead.
This is kind of morbid, but I'm seriously, in the past couple of days, I'm like waiting for the first news article where it
About
literally
someone
does say
dies, yeah.
somebody dies playing
Yeah.
Pokemon Go.
I think
Like,
it'll happen.
How sad would that be? But it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like, somebody's just like, I don't know, like, I've got to run across the
I
street and try to
imagine
go
there's
catch
already been
this.
car crashes from this game.
Probably.
All right. So you want to talk memes in Pokemon Go? Did you see the one that Evan Klein tagged us in earlier?
Yes.
Shout out.
Shout out.
Evan. He's like our number one like avid listener. So it says this.
He's our only listener.
True. It's got Kermit the Frog drinking Lipton tea.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But it says Pokemon says to go, and everyone's in 30 billion neighborhoods. Jesus says to go, and you're stuck on the couch.
Yep.
Ooh.
Yep. I literally
Yikes.
I went for a 3-miler last night, just out from the house, and I'm running down St. Joe Avenue, and I come across this car dealership, and I think it's like a collision repair place as well. Run past it, I see these two guys, probably in their younger 20s, and one has like this chain. He's like wearing gothic clothes and everything like that, and it's hot out, this that. And it's funny as Pokemon Go is, it's funny to see like how people interact just because of one thing. I'm running by and I see him like on his phone like making the motion like he's capturing someone with a
Throwing
Pokeball.
Pokeballs.
And I'm like, I yell over him like, "Pokemon?" And he goes, "Yep." And I just throw the OK sign at him, and he just starts laughing. He's like, "Ah!" So it's just crazy how like from our age, even older and to younger,
Dude,
like,
you've
everyone's
got
doing
like
this.
everybody that's old enough to have a smartphone now
Yeah.
to 40.
Yep.
Like that's like the range of
Yeah, it's
of
a thing.
ages.
By the way, choose Team Red. Team Red.
Team Red. All
Team
right.
Red, the
I don't
pod-
know if I've leveled up enough. To
The
get to
podcast endorses Team Red. Anyways, to get off our Pokemon Go
Team. Yeah,
soapbox.
let's go back to what Daniel was speaking of. earlier.
Team Red. Team Red.
I don't even remember what we were speaking about now.
Well, we weren't speaking in tongues, that's for sure.
We don't speak in tongues on this podcast.
That's a fact.
Just-
Unless the Lord, decided to make
Right.
it happen.
Sure.
And that's a whole different subject we could touch on.
Right.
Yeah.
You just don't learn it. Because people do that. And
It's weird
funny.
how it was the Holy Spirit descended
Yeah.
upon them, and then they started speaking in tongues.
Yeah, we'll be touching on a lot of stuff that people think is accurate.
Now hold on, because Jesus hung out with them for 40 days after he resurrected.
that's
right?
true.
So maybe in that 40 days,
Yeah.
he just taught them how to speak tongues.
That's true. He was like, he had a class, Tongues 101.
I bet Joel Osteen has a commentary
That's
on
true,
that.
probably.
We'll figure it out. Alrighty.
So we'll be touching more on worship and our lifestyle and everything, and kind of, I know Daniel's really touched on it for us and what it meant for us coming back from Camp Barnabas, but I guess the question to you, Daniel, is so lifestyle, staying here, staying here. You didn't come with us on the mission trip.
didn't.
You were a loner.
I didn't go.
But how is worship in your everyday life today, yesterday? What do you want it to be in the future?
Yeah, man. I mean, that's a huge question. I think, the big thing, the first thing that comes to mind is the verse that Ricky was hitting on earlier. And then it's just basically in all that you do, whether it's eating or drinking or speaking or anything. I mean, however small or however large, what I'm finding lately is that in all of those things, if I have my eyes to the cross, if I'm looking at Christ and I'm looking at his life and his death and his resurrection, and I'm looking at the gospel and I'm renewing my mind in that daily, then it's going to follow. I'm still going to fall short, but it's going to follow that I will then place myself in a better position with the aid of the Holy Spirit, really, to be able to worship God in all that I do. And I'm finding that lately, and so it's a constant reminder. I mean, it's you talk about daily, but it's every minute for me. And I think for all of us, there's distractions all around constantly, and so it's this idea of whether it's in servanthood or it's in just a moment of relaxing or it's whatever. Am I looking to the cross? Am I thinking about the gospel? Am I taking the Great Commission into mind?
Mm-hmm.
And am I seeking to live for God?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to do, but obviously failing at it all the time.
Yeah,
but
sure. It's always one of the most humbling things that can happen in your life is fail, because and actually accepting that, but turning around and not just accepting it and letting it be, but you go to the Father through Jesus, and you just, the biggest thing is that if we don't repent and we don't do things that are for His will, then we're just what are we doing? It's just like, okay, sure, I failed. I can fail a lot more, and it'll be fine, right? No, that's not the thing.
Right.
We progress in a fashion that is fitting for God's will and everything. And I know that's to look ahead in the future and what that looks like for worship in our everyday life. That is something that I know each and every one of us aspire to do. Because quite frankly, we fail every single day.
Sure.
At it, whether that's marriage, our walk with Christ, or just the relationships we have, and it's tough sometimes.
it is.
But it's not impossible. And that's the thing we tend to beat ourselves up about. I think I'm speaking for myself more than anything else.
No, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I hear you. I think that just areas that I can improve in is there's tons of them, but I think one of the biggest things that I struggle with, almost daily is just thinking just going back to whole camp, like thinking that I have it figured out because
Sure.
someone else's struggle or pitfall is different than mine.
Right.
And it's like that might not necessarily be an area that I struggle in, you know, and my natural inclination is to kind of look down on someone or judge them, instead of like using it as a moment to be a light or be an example. You know, we're all image bearers of Christ, and so it's like so often I will kind of look down my nose at someone's behavior or something that might offend me or even cross me in a way, instead of using that as like a moment to worship God and pray to God. So you're worshiping God through prayer and asking Him, how can I be a light here? How can I be an example? And too many times I just want to turn away from it and then, you know, hold a grudge and be angry or those types of things.
Dude, I know there's times where like someone comes up to you and they ask questions and stuff like, or not even ask questions, they talk about how like God has like impacted their lives. And like I know for me, like I sit there sometimes and just like I'm like in my mind I'm like nitpicking what they're saying. I'm like inside like my heart's getting puffed up a little bit. Like I should be like, well, what you should probably say this instead of that because this is what it really means. And then I'm just like, well, back up a little bit. Look what God's doing in their life.
I think you're still just going through the renewed reformed phase.
Oh my God. So this should probably
Romans 8 right now.
this should probably be made known. Like we have a reformed how many point Calvinist in here?
Good point.
It's a 3.5 to 4 probably.
3.5
Yeah.
to 4. And
Yeah.
Andy, do you know at what point? You are?
Not at what point, because I know Ricky and I have talked about this. Like he's like this and that point, and everything like that. But I know, like a few months ago, like I switched more on the
Yeah.
I'm more reformed now than ever. So this is crazy.
And I think that would be a great topic for a later podcast.
For
Like,
sure.
where we could run you through the acronym of TULIP and the other acronyms that are out there and kind of talk about Trip Lee actually did a really awesome like quick interview on how he like discovered he was reformed. And it was like it was really cool to kind of hear that, and I think that would be a really cool topic of discussion.
Sure.
But on that, while we're kind of talking about that, I have a good friend named Jack Hager. A lot of people in the church know who he is. And I love what he says because there is this idea that like reformers tend to be know-it-alls. And there's actually a lot of hilarious memes out there of like newly converted reformed believers. They're just really funny, and it's like it's a lot to tackle. There's a lot of deep theology, like theological ideals and stuff like that. But Jack Hager always says, "I'm reformed with a lowercase r," and I would say that as well. I had a shout out to Jack Hager.
Shout out.
I had a talk with a good friend of mine, Nick Pierce over at Grace Evangelical.
Shout out.
We're gonna have to figure out a different way to do this.
We're gonna have to get like a bell or something.
Yeah.
And I talked to him and another guy named AJ Ghazi.
Oh, gosh.
Shout out.
About just like the idea of the Arminianist and the Calvinist.
Arminianist.
And the Calvinist. And so I love what Jack says. For me, I think that whether you're reformed or you're not, like that's not like, oh, if you're not reformed, you're not getting into the kingdom of heaven.
Sure.
But my take is I'm fully prepared that if I get to the pearly gates and God's like, yeah, that's not really what I'm okay if I'm wrong, I guess. You know what I mean? So I would say I'm reformed.
You should be okay.
Well, as far as who chose who first type of thing. All I know is that it's my belief that I did nothing to attain my salvation, and that I was dead and Jesus saved me. So,
and I know we will save this for another, because this could be.
We'll save this for another time, but we're going to touch on it.
Yeah, but we're going to continue.
It's a huge rabbit trail.
So,
but no, our theology comes into our worship too.
It does.
Sure. And I think like the big thing with this is that the danger and kind of what you're hitting on with like the little r, and when I say I'm reformed, is that should never be our identity. And the problem is too often kind of with the puffing up of the chest and in the feel like I filled my mind with the knowledge and I now get it. I get this better. The problem is we take that and then we become prideful with that. And the fact that maybe I say, oh, I'm reformed, that now, if anyone is outside of that, if anyone disagrees with that, then that now becomes the thing that I'm focused on. And again, no longer is the cross or Christ the focus. And I think that there's a lot of issues with that. I think at the end of the day,
it can become a form of idolatry. It's like what we were talking about earlier.
Pokemon Go.
It really can. But another shout out to a really good buddy of mine, Russell Savage.
Shout out.
I was talking with him the last couple of weeks, and we were talking a lot about the original manuscripts for the scriptures, and for whatever reason, the topic of election got brought up, and he basically said that but he basically said that one of the problems in transitioning, or not transitioning, but what's the word? Translating the original texts in Greek and Hebrew over to English is that what has happened, unfortunately, is that sometimes he was basically proposing that the original texts on election actually don't focus so much on election. And that's not the focus of the sentence or the whatever. Like, and so then when we translate it over, we have then taken that and we've blown that up more than what it originally was intended to be, which then causes all of these wars through biblical scholars. That then it's what's your stance on election, and that does have a big part to play in are you reformed or not, and are you an Arminianist, right?
Arminianist.
So I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I would like to kind of talk to him a little bit more about that. And just interested in like what resources
he'd actually be great to have on here.
Yeah,
seriously.
Well, maybe when we get to the Reformed topic in the future, we can have Russell come on. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Fire and brimstone.
Yeah, in your face.
Yeah, in Ricky's kitchen.
Yeah, that's where we're at, by the way. We're recording the podcast today at Autumn and I's new apartment. It's beautiful. I love it. It looks great.
Lots
it's so
of white.
comfy.
They're white.
Well, it's kind of an off-white. It's more like eggshell.
Eggshell.
Yeah.
I found out there are no Pokemon in his apartment, so...
That is not true.
Well, that's debatable.
Dude, I caught a Ratatouille.
Ratatouille. He caught a Mickey Mouse earlier. That's what he said.
Right here on this table. Thank you very much. Actually, I think on this counter.
He caught a Digimon.
I caught something in the back.
Did you catch a Digimon?
Yeah, dude. Digimon. Wait, seriously, is there a difference?
No.
What? So, anyways. And so kind of, I don't know, going back to worship as a lifestyle. I think tying it into my camp experience for me in closing is that every single time I'm at home and I wipe my own butt, I give a shout out to the Lord. I praise the Lord in that moment.
Gosh.
And I go, seriously, I'm like...
It's like the little things.
I have
really
nothing, there is no affliction, like, in this life. I'm not saying that, the craziest part about this, dude, I started playing We Are the World at lunch one day.
We are the world.
And it's like, just to see, like, all of the little things that I complain about, and it's like, all of the campers, like, with these setbacks that I don't have, the things that I don't have to, like my struggles, my afflictions are different. I still have them, but like just to see them like not caring, you know, and just literally like worshiping God with all of their hearts. For me, like I'm like, you are so selfish, and what is your problem? You know, and to come back and go, I need to be more worshipful. It's like if the milk expires, I complain. You know, if I've told this story, and this is kind of it's kind of a funny story now, but right before I left for camp, Autumn and I moved to this apartment, and we kind of sort of got into an argument about her not changing the cat litter box. And so it's like it's always kind of been like her thing. Like I do the trash, she does the cat litter box. Right? And I would just complain to her about like, are you gonna change the cat litter box? Like it's starting to smell, and like, you know, it's like
there's poop in it. We
Right.
told you guys we'd be talking
We've been
about
talking a lot about poop.
Ricky's cat, if you guys don't know, what's his real name? Her real name?
Sylvie.
Sylvie. She also goes by nickname Anime because
Yep.
she has the world's shortest legs and she looks like she's from an anime.
Big eyes.
Big eyes, yeah. It's
Yeah.
completely weird. So anyway.
So we get into an argument about cleaning out Anime's cat box right before I leave for camp. And so going back to the whole poop thing, literally it was like the first time I wiped another grown man's butt.
Dude, it's intense, man.
The thing though is like God didn't audibly speak to me, but there was like a moment where God goes, "Hey, but the cat box isn't so bad now, is it?" And like I was like it just hit me, and I was like, man, like wow. And so I carried that with me the whole rest of the week, and like come home and I'm just like, dude, like be a servant. Like stop complaining.
These
Stop
are nothing,
arguing with your wife over these like little things. And so like kind of it's kind of funny looking at it. It's like I got into an argument over something so small compared to what I had to do all
Small
week.
poop, right?
Yes, literally Anime has
Small poops.
compared to a 28-year-old man's
That's
poop.
a fact. Physically,
So.
it's right. It's accurate. No, for me, it's crazy. Kind of like Ricky was saying in closing, just to see how the
How
mission
is it?
Okay, it's just I don't know how many times I've said crazy, but it's crazy.
You only said it once.
Oh, did I? Oh, well, that's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's so crazy. Crazy.
My camper was so he had a wheelchair with him. Obviously, most of the campers did, but he was completely dependent, and so that meant everything from feeding to changing to lifting in the bed. And we had these times throughout camp where we went to the swimming pool.
Oh man,
And
so much fun.
you just you get them ready, you put a life jacket on them, then you put them in the pool, and all my camper Joey says is, "I want to walk." And I was like, "Yes, let's do this." Mm-hmm. So I'm on his side, I grab his knees, I push him down, and then I lift him up from the back, and then I am holding him in front of me, and he's walking. This is the only time he gets to walk in his entire life. Yeah. And I go, "Joey, you're doing this. This is crazy. This is awesome." And he's just laughing. He's just like, "I'm walking." Yeah. He wants to impress this girl who was in her cabin the whole time. He called her, shout out to Chloe Palmer. Shout out. And he called her Vanilla Pudding. I think 'cause she's white. So
did he get that from you?
No, straight from her.
No,
straight from him himself. Yeah, he's all thoughts, bro.
Wow,
that's awesome, dude.
You guys were meant to be.
Just straight up. And so it's crazy. And I kind of talked to him like, "Dude, so do you get to do this at home?" And he goes, "No, not at all." Yeah. So this is really his only time he gets to, not only like being in the swimming pool is one thing, but walking.
Yeah.
This is the only time he ever gets to walk in his entire life. Once a year, these campers, when they leave, they literally set a physical clock for 364 days. So they come back. Mm-hmm. They're excited for it. And it's crazy to see how Joey, essentially we are the same age. Joey and I are 26. And it's crazy to see the differences, but really just I learned so much from him. And what it really means to just look forward to the blessings that God has given you. Yeah. And this whole entire time, like after we come back home, Elena's rummaging. We're cleaning out. We're cleaning up the house, and I'm getting my bag ready for like work and stuff. and she pulls out a little card that we get from the cabin staff that pretty much says what's going on with the camper, like the disabilities, this and that, how old they are and stuff. And Elena goes, "Your camper was blind?" And I go, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah."
Andy doesn't know how to read.
Yeah. She's like, "Yeah, he was blind." I was like, "Get out of here." I'm like, "You're joking." So she shows me the card. I'm like, that makes a lot of sense now, because he was always asking, "Where's vanilla pudding?"
That's so funny.
Like, Joey, you dog, you. But it's so funny because you look past all these things, and it's just funny what a card may say, but what God puts, the life that God puts in a human being, it's just fascinating to see, because sight is nothing compared to what God has given us on the inside, and it's beautiful.
But also hear from that too, just like worship as a sense of thankfulness.
Yep.
And man, what a gift that you guys, especially and even just imparting it on other people, now being able to talk about your experience. But what a gift that is to be able to, man, going on missions trips and stuff is I always look at, I went to Haiti for a week. And I look at that as that trip, honestly, at the end of the day, was more for me than it was for the people that I went to with the intent to serve, right? And
It's
but
I had another friend of mine tell me that just the other day. That's crazy. Yeah.
But it's just at the end of the day, though, what I can take away from that is the fact that I now will forever know, I become blind to it all the time. But when I am reminded of that, to know just how much I have, and it's ridiculous. I mean, all three of us sitting around this table have so much, and just like you were saying with the litter box, that is such a small, little, insignificant problem, but we let that become this thing that gets in the way of relationship, and it gets in the way of worshiping and being thankful and rejoicing and having a glad heart for the Father. And man, what a good reminder of that, though.
Yeah, I think in closing, and kind of tying all this together, something that I would say, the biggest act of worship that you can do, and that I think that all of us would agree that you should be doing, if nothing else, is communicating with God daily. God wrote a book, and He's gifted it to us. And it's I truly believe it has a supernatural power to it. I know that in times whenever I lose my routine, and having an almost 6-month-old kid, I was telling Daniel earlier, I sat down to read this morning, and little Finn just wasn't having it, and so it's I'm looking forward to fitting that in there today, because I would love to sit down with God, and I would love to hear what He has to say, and it's if you want something that spurs you on, more than missions trips, more than conversations with Christian brothers and sisters, it's a conversation with God, and He speaks to you through prayer. And we speak to Him through prayer, and He speaks to us through His Word. And so, if you want the best advice that I think that any of us can give you is just spend time with God daily, through prayer and through His Word, because that will help you to tackle those mountains. At least we think they're mountains. They're not Calvary Hill, that's for sure. And so, real quick, we kind of talked about throwing out some podcasts that we listened to today. You guys want to do that?
Yeah, sure.
So we'll transition to that before we close out. But we've kind of got some just different podcasts that we're listening to that we would recommend that you guys go check out too. If you like our podcast, these are all podcasts that these podcastees listen to weekly almost. So Daniel, you go ahead.
Yeah. So we've got Doxology and Theology podcast. Excellent. Just found out about that one, but it's really good. A lot of big names speaking on different aspects of worship. So it's an excellent podcast. The Worship Lab podcast is great. It's a lot of it specifically, I think, like crafted towards being like focused on like worship leaders, but at the same time, there's a lot of really good stuff there for other people that are serving in ministry roles in the church. So for sound and video teams, and for pastors, and there's a lot of good stuff in that. Ask Pastor John is one that Ricky brought up today. Just great. It's literally what, I don't know what
It's like, if you're looking for something that's quick, like in the car, like you've got a short commute or whatever, or you're on your lunch break, it's through Desiring God, which is Pastor John Piper from Bethlehem Baptist Church. Well, he's not technically there anymore. He's technically retired, but John Piper is just so insightful.
He's awesome.
Yeah, dedicated his life to the ministry of Christ, and so he just tackles questions. You know, like literally, like people will send in questions about marriage, about homosexuality, about drugs and alcohol, about worship as a lifestyle, and Pastor Piper will go through and will list, just kind of answer it. And it's very rooted in the gospel and scripture, and so I would definitely check that one out.
Then we've got the Church Leaders podcast here. I don't know if you want to.
That's literally what it sounds like. It's,
It is what
there
it
you
is.
go. That's easy.
Yeah, if you serve in church, like you don't have to be on staff at a church, and that's what I love about this podcast. Is I've listened to a bunch where it's even from people who serve as volunteers and have oversight of different ministries, and everything from youth ministry to worship ministry, the music on Sunday mornings, to AV stuff, to kids ministry, like literally, if you a women's ministry, or I think I listened to a podcast about a skate ministry one time on there that was really cool. It's a really good podcast to listen to if you're in church leadership in some capacity, and I would highly recommend it. And the last one that we have here, Adam Skinner, shout out. We'll be super stoked to hear this. So we, every Thursday, we've kind of taken a break because Pastor Scott's been gone, but we've kind of taken a break we've been doing Wayne Grudem Systematic Theology every Thursday.
Amazing.
But we titled it Scott
Hawkins Bible
Hawkins.
College. Yeah, Scott Hawkins Bible College.
Shout out.
Shout out. And so, but the podcast, for whatever reason, we're taking off of iTunes, and we just discovered today that they're actually back on there, and so I'm super stoked about that.
Nice.
Because it's just more convenient for me to listen in the car if I just pull up my podcast app through iTunes. So that's pretty awesome. There's one more podcast that I kind of want to mention.
Mention it.
I'm hesitant to
Do
mention
it.
it.
Do it.
The podcast isn't for everybody. I will wholeheartedly say that right now. But I've listened to it a ton. If you're easily offended, I don't know that I would necessarily listen to it. But actually, there's two. There's the Bad Christian podcast, which are the dudes from Emory.
Straight up.
They have a great podcast where they talk about tons of stuff, and they have tons of people come on and interview. So it's like, if there's someone that you specifically follow within the Christian music industry or a certain pastor or whatever, check that one out. And then another one, which I think probably caters more towards our theology, is the Reformed Pubcast. And that's one as well. If you've kind of got reservations when it comes to the idea of alcohol and stuff like that, I wouldn't recommend it for you. But if you're into Reformed theology, these guys talk about a lot of stuff like the doctrine of election and stuff. We talked about that earlier.
There's a lot of good stuff out of those.
So yeah, all of these are good podcasts. We highly recommend you check them out. And so we just want to thank you guys so much, and we're really worshiping God through praise and thankfulness. That we're able to get together and do this.
For sure.
And we look forward to getting something out there for you guys next week. Is there anything else anybody would like to add before we send off?
Choose Team Red, and we'll be good.
Yeah. Be careful out there on Pokemon Go.
Yeah, this just did.
Pokemon Go! What's our send-off? I already forgot it.
Oh yeah.
Like 1, 2, 3, shoot.
Yeah.
Ready?
Oh, we're doing that again.
Yeah, we have to. Dude.
Oh, we
It's our
have to.
send-off.
Okay. 1,
2, 3,
shoot.